From calling her the most terrible actress on the show to absolutely hating her character's chemistry with Roger, here's why Outlander fans can't stand Sophie Skelton, who, according to them, is the worst actor on the show. If you keep up with fans' forums on Outlander, you'd know this one. It's a pretty popular take. Sophie just can't act. And fans can't tolerate it anymore. Honestly, some of them are straight up baffled that such a good and successful show with a stellar cast could even have an actor as bad as Sophie. But it's not like they didn't give her a chance. One popular fan post mentions how they've been trying to tolerate her for many seasons now, but no matter how hard they try, they just can't. Fans say that every scene with Sophie in it just physically hurts. She doesn't come off as authentic, and her acting is never believable. When you're watching Skelton as Brianna, you never for 1 second get immersed in the character. You can always tell, quite painfully, that this is bad acting. So bad that one fan had to call Sophie the worst actress they'd ever seen. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Another fan wrote how every scene where Brianna says anything is so cringeworthy that it spoils the whole episode for them. Like others, they also agree that Sophie's acting has definitely improved over the past few seasons, but she's still pretty awful, not to mention outright intolerable. And that only gets worse when you know that she's acting opposite some of the best actors ever. One annoyed fan also mentioned how Sophie's face always looks like she's about to sneeze. That, or throw up. Like, she can never accurately display emotions. And if her expressions weren't bad enough, her voice and accent aren't really helping either. The thing about her voice definitely seems a bit too harsh. But some fans are really annoyed by how childish Sophie's voice sounds. And that really doesn't work in her favor. As like any other actor, your pitch and tone can literally make or break your performance. How's anyone going to consider childlike voices as serious acting? Before you come for these fans' throats, though, they're not dissing her voice alone. It's that voice, combined with her forced American accent, that makes her sound so terrible. You all know that Brianna is supposed to be someone raised in the States, but Sophie isn't American, she's British. And that's not an issue, right? British actors have played several American characters before without dropping the slightest hint. Sophie? Let's just say she's not nearly as gifted as those actors. As one fan wrote, because of her weird accent that doesn't sound American or British, she ends up sounding very fake and flat. Another fan commented that she'd probably sound better if she did use her own accent, but that means that she's not fit to play an American character. Someone even went as far as to say that Sophie's acting gets much better if you watch it without sound, and you might want to try that out. I'm super intrigued. So I definitely will. Now, while some fans are annoyed by her not sounding American enough, others take an issue with her trying to sound too American for her character. What does that even mean? Well, a faction of Outlander fans believe that while Brie may have been raised in the US, she was raised by British parents. So some of her pronunciations can and should be British, especially if those words are family related like aunt. Toward the end of season 4, we see Brianna spending a lot of time with her Aunt Jocasta, while her parents leave to search for Roger. And one viewer thought that Skelton's pronunciation of aunt as aunt wasn't really appropriate. Aunt is the usual American pronunciation of the word, but Brie was raised by English parents. They'd likely use the pronunciation aunt, which is what she should have said. And yeah, you could say that her school or friends in the US may have impacted her accent here. You'd be right. But the thing is, Brianna was raised in Boston, and this one fan was correct in pointing out how even most New Englanders there also say aunt. This little problem may have been a directorial slip-up, but it definitely doesn't help Sophie's already losing case, which has been in trouble ever since she was cast. It's not just her acting or terrible accents that make this actress so unlikable. There's also the fact that she looks nothing like what fans imagined Brianna to be. Everyone knows that Outlander got much of its popularity from the books it's based on, and in those books, Brie is a 6-feet-tall redhead. She was also supposed to look a lot like her father, Jamie, with sharp features. But one look at Skelton, and you'll know that she's not 6 feet tall at all. She couldn't be more than 5'8". Many fans have also taken issue with how the actress looks more like Claire than her father, which wasn't what the book told us. Basically, there's no redeeming quality for Sophie here. Her appearance doesn't match the books, and her acting doesn't match the show's high quality. Add that to the fact that Brianna's character is super unlikable as it is, and you've set yourself up for failure. Jamie and Claire are universally admired in the Outlander fandom, but their daughter? Not so much. When we first meet Bree in the series, she's acting like, well, a spoilt brat, which means that her character hasn't been fully developed when we see her first. And that never makes for good first impressions, especially when you're adding a series regular in the middle of the show. Sophie's aware of the hate Brianna gets, and she thinks it's irrational that all the hate is translated to herself. And honestly, she's right about this. She's just acting. She didn't throw a fire poker through a window. Brianna did. Bree is annoying because, unlike Claire and Jamie in their first impressions, she's still discovering herself. And in that process, she also comes off as selfish and hurtful to her parents. Which is a pretty normal young adult thing, by the way, but not when your parents are the two most beloved characters. For Sophie, Brianna is just misunderstood. If anything, her brattiness is just a reference to her father's temper, which many fans refer to as Fraser temper. Skelton's confused about why her character gets so much hate for something that Jamie is adored for. And she's right, except some fans think her temper isn't just taking after her dad. It's simply a bad attitude. One viewer referred back to the scene where Roger had to pick Bree up and carry her out of the house when she got angry at Mrs. Bugs. And Brianna was constantly kicking her feet and screaming at Mrs. Bugs as if she was a child. That's not her having a short temper. It's just being an entitled brat. Jamie's never gotten angry like this, and even if he did, his character made it up with amazing acting, not to mention his striking chemistry with the female lead, which is the show's selling point, something that Sophie doesn't seem to have with her character's love interest. Richard Rankin, who plays Roger Mackenzie, is an excellent actor, but even his performance is negatively impacted by the way his co-actor acts. According to most fans, Sophie's flat acting often translates into much drier and weaker chemistry between Bree and Roger. Honestly, everyone knows that Roger and Brianna can never have that time and space-defying romance that Jamie and Claire did, and comparing them to the ideal pair isn't exactly the best idea. Bree doesn't want to be with Roger when they're in the present timeline, but she's head over heels for him the minute he lands in the past? Sure, that's some bad writing here. But Sophie's performance falls way too short, to the point where fans are just not convinced of their love. I mean, Skelton's expressions could have made the transition much smoother. Instead, they instantly go from cold to super in love. Where's the middle ground? Now, fans who have read the books know that this couple has a lot of potential. And Richard, for one, plays his part wonderfully. No one can doubt his mad love for his beloved, even for 1 second, even when he is struggling with his emotions. On the other hand, Sophie's acting doesn't convey that deep connection that everyone knows Bree must feel at some point. I mean, it's written in the books, for God's sake. In her defense, though, Brianna was going through quite an emotional turmoil when we first met her. Like, her father died, and then she discovered that he was never her father after all. So she wants to find her real one and ventures centuries back in time, where she has to first deal with assault and then find out she's pregnant. That's a lot. But so was Sophie's performance. It felt like she was trying too hard to deliver this emotional chaos that she completely forgets about her connection to Roger. There's no subtlety in her emotions, and the audience doesn't know if she feels something until she says it. And if there's one thing you know about a good and steamy romance, words should be kept to a minimum. There are no stolen looks, no depth to what Sophie is saying, that could make fans think her character actually misses Roger, even though she's supposed to in those scenes. So from having offbeat chemistry with her co-star, to just not being able to convince the audience with her acting, this was why Outlander fans hate Sophie Skelton.